It's the Unhappy Hour.
Broadcasting to you live from the Milky Way galaxy, the solar system, planet Earth, North America, the United States of America, California, looking at the Hollywood sign, Los Angeles to be specific. Hello everybody and welcome to the Unhappy Hour, the only Los Angeles-based Cleveland-centric sports show that I am currently aware of. And I'm your host, Brian Engelman. Thank you for joining us. Whether this is your first show or you've listened for 3 years in a row, thank you from the bottom of my heart. So much stuff to talk about today. Cleveland Indians swept the Detroit Tigers. And guess what? It's still not front page sports news if you're a Cleveland fan. People are still talking Johnny Football. People are still talking about the draft pick. Number 1 NBA draft pick. Which is pretty cool. Especially in this draft, because there's a lot of talent. Joel Embiid, Jabari Parker, Andrew Wiggins. These are, I'm not saying these are necessarily going to be like Dwayne Wade, Chris Bosh, LeBron James type players, but it's a lot different than Victor Oladipo and Anthony Bennett. So we're going to bring in a few cats to talk about this. We're going to welcome to the program Rob Trautman and John Toburin. John will be on for the second time, and Rob's been on a few times before. Rob is the host of Sports on Tap, and we'll get to John in a second here. But real quick, if you haven't checked out our homepage, please do so. It's at thenewamericanmedia.com. Check it out, peruse around a lot of different content, not just sports. YouTube.com/thenewamericanmedia. Please click subscribe over there and check out our 3 years of archived shows. Very cool, just about to hit 300,000 video views. Very neat. I enjoy that. I like that. It's like the other day, it just seems like the other day we had 50,000, or the other day we had 100,000. Now we're here at 300,000, and it's kind of increasing exponentially, so thank you. Go on Facebook and do a search for The New American Media. Put spaces in between and like the page. And on Twitter, we're at American_media_. I think you can access our Twitter and our Facebook right at our homepage, thenewamericanmedia.com, on the bottom right. Underneath the TNAM radio link where you can listen to our live radio shows, and underneath our quote of the day as well, or quote of the hour because it rotates. But tell you what, let's just jump right in here. Let's talk a little bit of baseball. I have been derelict in my duties to cover the tribe, so let's jump into that. I'm going to bring in Rob Trautman to do so. Well, I'm going to attempt to do so.
Brian, how you doing?
Rob, I'm living the dream, buddy. How are you, sir? You're live on the air.
Good. Doing very good. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me on your show.
It's always a pleasure. And why don't you grab the microphone as you just did and maybe introduce yourself to everybody, tell them about what you're up to, where they can check out your work with Sports on Tap. And I got so much to get into here. I'm just going to kind of go rapid fire with you. It's been such a crazy, awesome sports week to be an Indians fan and a Cavs fan and a Browns fan. And
it sure has.
Exactly.
But no, appreciate you having me. I'm Rob Trautman. I'm the host of Sports on Tap, and you can reach me at rtrauty, Trauty, or we're at SOT Podcast, and we do Cleveland sports. We also do local high school sports and national sports as well. So if you want to get involved with our show and check us out, we're on Podomatic, iTunes. Just type in Sports on Tap, and you can listen to all of our podcasts there.
Excellent. Now, there's so much to talk about, and I want to start off with something a little weird. With all of the problems going on, it's Memorial Day on Monday, and I'm very thankful to all those that have served our country and whatnot. We're hearing all these scandals with the VA, the Veterans Administration, and it's rough when people are on secret waiting lists and they're dying because they're not getting treated. These are the returning heroes that sacrificed everything. And I got this article in front of me. I'll probably get into this a little bit later, but it's from Bloomberg. It says Obama expands field for sports as political refuge. welcoming in the Seahawks with the 12th man and like trying to distract from all these serious problems. But the reason I'm bringing all this up is because our Congress is taking the time to try to put leverage on Daniel Snyder to change the name of the Redskins. Actually, I don't have it in front of me. They've been doing this. They've been named the Redskins since they were in Boston since 1934 or something like that. I'll have to double check.
It's been honestly, it's been a long time. Almost, I mean, I wouldn't say since they first started, but it's been a long time.
A very long time, and as you answer, I'll probably pull it up here. But now in Congress, they're putting pressure on the Redskins to change their name. This is a huge opportunity to talk about the Indians. I have not talked about the tribe all year, essentially. I mean, a little bit here and there, but coming off of a sweep of the Tigers, the Motown Kitties, it's a great time to talk about it. But now I'm just wondering, do you think that the pressure is going to mount to change the name of the Indians? Because you see with their jerseys, they're going with the script C. They're not even using Chief Wahoo anymore. I mean, before we get into how awesome this past week was, sweeping the Tigers, just any thoughts on Indians changing their name? Because Congress, with all the problems that are going on in this world, they actually want to waste their time on the NFL trying to get the Redskins to change their name. So,
well, earlier this year here in Cleveland, there was some very small protests. We'll say that people were on the streets saying they need to get rid of Chief Wahoo, that it degraded the Indians or anybody that's still in part of the Indian culture, or I have no clue what exactly they were trying to fight for. But I mean, the Indians have had that name for a long time, and to me, really, it's nothing really degrading. I think it should be an honor that professional teams want that name. I don't think they're trying to degrade anybody, and it's been this way for a long time, and I think it's a little more of a big deal. I mean, maybe others have different perspectives, and we all have a different perspective on things. But the way I see it, I just don't know why it's such a huge ordeal when it's kind of been this way a long time. You don't really. I don't think people are trying to degrade them or make fun of them or whatever direction they're looking at. So I really don't understand why it's such a big ordeal. It's been this way for a long, long time, and I think that's kind of the way everything seems to be going nowadays. You have to watch everything you say now. Otherwise, it's out on social media. People are going to take it, 10 different ways. You could say something nice to someone, but someone else may take it as something negative. So I think, I don't know where this is going to go. I hope it doesn't come to that. But, for right now, there really hasn't been a ton of talk about the Indians changing Chief Wahoo, and I hope it doesn't, because I did notice, they're going with the block C. I think that's kind of, so they don't have Chief Wahoo all the time. But to me, it shouldn't be this big of a deal.
Yeah, and what's happening now, though, I mean, you look at the NBA, and it's more like watching MSNBC or Fox News with the Donald Sterling stuff. And one of the guys that stood up and kind of had something to say about this said, whoa, hold on, like, I get that this guy's a dirtball. Okay, I get that he's all right. He's saying some stuff that are pretty offensive, but this is a slippery slope here. Now, and that was Mark Cuban, the Dallas Mavericks owner, saying, "Hey, this is a slippery slope. We start becoming thought police. At what point can you just deem somebody unable to earn a living anymore or pursue their business venture of their choosing? At what point does all speech get shut?" And he just raised the point. This is a slippery slope. You guys better be careful here. And then of course Mark Cuban was in the news with his comments. Did you have a take on that one? And I swear we'll get back to the tribe.
Yeah, that was kind of interesting too, because if you remember first when the Donald Sterling everything happened, I mean, what he said was completely wrong. And really, it's not just this one time. I think it goes back a long time ago.
And that's, by the way, that's he being Donald Sterling, not Mark Cuban, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, Donald Sterling. And it was interesting at that time, Mark Cuban agreed with, the NBA commissioner saying something needed to be done that's uncalled for and ridiculous. And then today it seemed like he took a little bit of a different stance. Although, he still said it was wrong, but then he said, it seems like everyone kind of feels that way, when you see, he mentioned some about a black guy in a hooded sweatshirt, and he mentioned a white guy with tattoos. You know, there are stereotypes, but I just don't think a guy of that nature really needs to go there and make comments. You know, especially, I mean, he's a high end figure that works with many businesses that many, you know, he makes a lot of money, obviously. But to me, I mean, I just don't know if he necessarily had to go there, because, you know, now people that he works for, so who knows what kind of perspective they're going to have on him. But I thought it was interesting. Mark Cuban's a very outspoken guy, so it doesn't necessarily surprise me, but I thought maybe he could have taken a different route, you know, and maybe just, I don't know, maybe kept it a little more quiet and close to the chest, especially with a touchy subject like that, because, you know, that's a subject that, you know, everybody has an opinion about, and it's not always good to maybe make comments like that every once in a while, I guess, especially when you're Mark Cuban.
Yeah, and it's just weird to me because I've had my own issues in college running for student government president, where there were some groups that started pointing fingers at me and saying I'm a racist because of this and that. And, you know, of course, when you're in politics, even if it's just simple little crazy college student government stuff, it still counts. And so, you know, I felt this, you know, that the PC police. I went to Bowling Green State University, and I called it liberal state university. It was really just the thought police and the things that you can't say, and check your white privilege, and, you know, all this stuff about race. And I like that it's being talked about, because I feel like the teeter-totter has been flipped completely on one side for so long. The conversations need to happen. And I'm just tired of everything being deemed racist and offensive, and whether it's the Redskins' names or the Cleveland Indians' name. And I'll tell you what, if it's midnight and I see somebody in a hooded sweatshirt walking toward me, yeah, I'm thinking about crossing the street. I'm thinking I'm going to do that. I don't care what color it is. I don't care when I get on the other side. I don't want to see anybody on the street if it's midnight.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the way it is now. I mean, honestly, no matter who's walking by you, I mean, even if they're not in a hooded sweatshirt and they're just, you know, you just don't know anymore. You know, the normal, how many times have we seen issues with, you know, just it looks like a normal kid, and then all of a sudden, you know, malls are, you know, how many times have there been issues at malls, or, you know, there's been shootings and stuff. I mean, it you know, even the people that look normal, you know, I mean, everybody looks, I guess, kind of normal, but, you know, that's what happens. And, you know, you have to keep your eyes open and just, you know, be aware of your surroundings and go at it that way. But, yeah, everybody, I mean, you can't really trust anybody anymore. You have to be very careful, it seems like, and it's just the way our world has gone.
Yeah, so, I mean, I guess in that respect, maybe if I were to just phrase it, if someone came, you know, walking with their face obscured with a hooded sweatshirt, or someone across, just anyone at midnight, yeah, I'm across the street, and it doesn't make you automatically racist because of it. I haven't even identified who is covering their face. It's just, here we are having this conversation as Donald Sterling's getting kicked out of the NBA, and it's like all we can do is flip the hell out over race, and it's just I don't know, it's very boring to me after 6 years of the Obama administration, where you can't criticize policy without being yelled at and being called a racist by the Democrats in Congress and the House and most of the mainstream media. So anyway, it's just interesting because this week it's all about race. It's Mark Cuban, it's Donald Sterling, and you know, the Washington Redskins. So I just had to get that out of the way because I really want to talk about the Indians. This is something that for the past few years the Indians have been pretty good, at least for half of the season. Last year they kind of put it together, made a really great run at the end of the year to make a one-game playoff, which I think is stupid anyway. It should be a series. But this is something the Tribe just has not been able to do in a long time, and that's take down Detroit. And we didn't just take 2 or 3. We swept them, and we swept them in kind of epic fashion. You want to talk about what we learned about the Tribe and the Tigers this past week, because it was a crazy week for baseball, and it's really good seeing the Tribe kind of getting moving in the right direction after sputtering for a lot of the beginning of the season so far.
Well, and the Tigers coming into playing the Indians were probably the hottest team in baseball. I mean, they were coming off a win streak. The Indians were struggling a little bit, and them to get a key sweep against, you know, an AL Central team is huge, especially with the Tigers. One thing with the Indians that we've noticed is the fact that Carlos Santana still is struggling, but he got a key hit last night against the Orioles to get a big win.
Finally, like my buddy said, you know,
Yeah.
that's it. Carlos Santana's a bum on Facebook. He's such a bum. I'm like, hey, I've always liked his music. And then sure enough, in between just making these jokes, he actually delivered the game winner. And it was like, all right, I'll take some of that back. But yeah, I mean, Carlos Santana was kind of supposed to be. It was like Victor Martinez kind of left around the time Carlos Santana was coming in. It's like, oh, okay, we'll trade him for him and we'll get the same production. That just hasn't been the case.
Yeah, and to get Carlos Santana, we traded Casey Blake, you know, to the Dodgers, which was a good trade. And Santana the last few years has hit, you know, 260 average, I would say. But right now he's pressing at the plate. I think he's trying to do a little too much because the Indians need some offense. He's trying to do everything, and obviously, you know, this is a team that isn't necessarily going to put it out of the park all the time. You know, they're going to play small ball with you, get base hits and score runs that way. But you know, same goes Nick Swisher. He's starting to get some hits, put it together. He's batting, I think, 212 right now, but he was batting 190, so he's got it up a little bit. But you know, offensively, this team has relied on David Murphy, you know, from Texas. He's been a pleasant surprise for the Indians, coming from Texas. You know, he had a down year last year, but now he's really been one of those guys that's really stabilized the offense a little bit and got it together in these last few games, along with Lonnie Chisenhall.
Before we talk about Lonnie Chisenhall, I want you to explain David Murphy, because this guy has kind of came out of nowhere and he has been clutch. He has been big time, and then we'll get to Lonnie Chisenhall. But I actually just want to press pause, you know, throw the car off onto the side of the road and stop and tell me a little bit more about David Murphy. Give me more of the backstory about this guy, how we got him, everything.
Well, David Murphy didn't really come out of nowhere. I mean, he was with Texas for about actually 4 or 5 years. That's originally, he went to college at Baylor, was in the Boston Red Sox organization, got traded to Texas. And he was in most of his career in Texas, but last year, I believe he batted maybe 230. So he batted 230, struggled last year, and the Rangers weren't interested in bringing him back. And I think he was a little bit hurt by that. But then he found a team in the Indians that's willing to take a little bit of a chance. They paid him decent money. You know, it wasn't outrageous. I think it was, you know, $4 million a year maybe. But he is a guy that doesn't have a ton of power, but he can take the ball out of the park as he has showed. He has above average. I mean, a career, I think he's batting 275 batting average. And this is David Murphy, plays right field. Defensively, pretty solid. But he's a guy that's kind of slaps at the ball sometimes. He's tough to strike out. He's kind of like, you know, Ichiro. If you've ever watched him, he slaps at the ball and tries to get on base any way he can with his speed. David Murphy kind of does the same thing, but it seems like, you know, whether it's outside or in, he's going to take the ball wherever it's pitched, and that's a key for a lot of hitters. And, I mean, he's stepped up very nicely. I mean, he's been a pleasant surprise so far. There's a lot of season left, but if you have to talk about guys that have really stepped up, you know, and a free agent that the Indians went out and got, they needed another big bat, still in my opinion. They didn't get it. They got David Murphy, and David Murphy's a very nice surprise.
By the way, 1932, to go back on, I looked up when the Redskins started. 1932 is since the Redskins have been known as the Redskins, and all of a sudden now it's offensive when we need to take attention off of legitimate political scandals.
Negative 48 years old, I think, if I do the math correctly.
With 40, you know what? I don't have the mental capacity right now. It's called the Unhappy Hour, and it is an hour right now. Are you sipping on anything good, sir? It is Friday. No. It's the end of a long week. All right. Well, when we, I'll give you the background though. When we started doing radio shows, the first one was not Agree to Disagree. It was the Unhappy Hour, and it was me and my buddy Sean, and it was called the Unhappy Hour. So we would get different beverages, and we would fire up the rig, and we'd do our show and invite our friends on and talk some sports and talk about what we were sipping on. But
that's perfect. I mean, that's a perfect way to start, and usually you get, I'm sure, good conversation with it.
Usually, you're absolutely right about that. I wanted to ask you something too before we get to Lonnie Chisenhall, because I totally broke your stream there. But yeah, I've been really happy with David Murphy so far. I hope he keeps it up. Something that came out today is that the Indians farm team, celebrating the 25th anniversary of the movie Major League, the Lake County Captain, single A affiliate of the Indians, giving away a Joe Boo bobblehead doll at the August 1st game. Are you going, and can you get me one?
You know what? I wish I could. I didn't even hear about that. I mean, you knew about it before I did. That's absolutely amazing.
All right.
And the Indians, if I was the Indians, I mean, why not have Roger Dorn? Why not have Taylor? Why not have Willie Mays bobblehead?
Willie Mays Hayes. Yeah.
That would be a draw that I think they could probably get a lot of people. You want to get people to park? Be involved with Major League, because that's a movie that everyone loves.
Hey, you know what? I went ahead and I'm tweeting this as we speak. Indians farm team to offer Joe Boo bobblehead. I'm tweeting that at R Trouty. That's
right.
That is where you can find Rob Trautman, host of Sports on Tap. But yeah, we were talking about Lonnie Chisenhall. I did tweet that out. It'll be in your timeline. Feel free to share that with your peeps. But yeah, Lonnie Chisenhall. You were starting to really get excited about what you had to say there, and I totally cut you off. So if you could continue, please.
Well, Lonnie Chisenhall's a guy that, the first 2 to 3 years he's batted, low 200s and has really struggled. But this year, I don't know if he's worked in the off season with some of the coaches, but he's got on track. He's batting .371 and has been a major contributor this year to the Indians' offense so far. And the offense has kind of been a little bit down. With Swisher, Kipnis is still hurt. And we talked about Carlos Santana, who's struggling at the plate, but then Lonnie Chisenhall has been a nice surprise. And I think he's probably been one of the guys that has probably been the best surprise for the Indians so far this year. I don't know if he's on a contract year. I don't think he is, but he's a guy that stepped up, and when the offense has needed him, he's either hitting home runs or getting a clutch base hit like he did the other night with a home run against Baltimore. But he's a guy that has been pretty impressive this year, and I think the Indians are ready to give up on him. If it wasn't this year that he would step up, I think they probably would have let him go, or at least set him down to AAA, because he wasn't finding his stroke the last few years at least. So great job by Lonnie, and hopefully he continues to hit the rest of the year.
Looking up his stats there, born in 1988. He's a 25-year-old kind of youngster, 3 years in with experience. Hitting .381, 2 homers, 8 ribbies, and definitely different from his .262 average throughout his career. So yeah, I mean he is coming along, and you're right though. We need another bat. It's just I don't know. It's like sometimes when things are firing on all cylinders, you just know it. You know it's working, and it was a hell of a week with the walk-off and the balk-off. Have you ever seen a balk-off home game winner?
No, I haven't seen that in a long time. I mean, but you know what? The way that game was with Detroit, I mean, back and forth. The Indians were down, they came back. They were down, they came back. I mean, nothing surprised me in that game. The way they went back and forth, time and time again, and they got the bases loaded, and Al Albuquerque, tried to make a move to one of the bases and then tried to go home, and the umpire caught him. So I haven't seen that in a long time. But you know what? The way that game was and how weird it was for the Indians to get an 11-10 win, I'm sure they're not going to complain about taking a sweep to the Tigers.
No, not at all. But it wasn't just that he was caught by the home plate ump. Like, everybody caught him. Even the people on the Tigers were like, wow, yeah, I can't even argue that. Like, it was what it was. I saw multiple umpires coming in, the what the heck do they call them? The guys out in the infield, the other, I don't know, umps? They're all just regular umps. Do they have official names for, like... Yeah.
Well, they have one at each base. So they're all, the home plate is probably the chief, and then they have one at first, I think second, and then, I don't know if they had them in the outfield or not, but yeah, they're all kind of different umps on the field that probably saw that from every angle possible.
Yeah, and I remember when it was called, I saw other umpires at other bases pointing in, nodding, like, yes, I saw that too. Yes, I confirm that. Like, it was crazy. It was a totally weird way to win a game, but sweeping the Tigers, this Tribe team, we lost today to Baltimore.
Baltimore 8-4.
Yeah, 8-4, falling 3 games under 500. I mean, what are you expecting out of this Indians team? I mean, we can sweep the Tigers, and we come down in here and lose this, and we're still under 500. I mean, what kind of team do we really have? Because, I specifically want to ask about the pitching, but overall, before we nitpick the pitching, what kind of team is this year?
It's a lot of they try to keep a lot of the same core players they had last year. Obviously, the bullpen's a little bit different. I think the bullpen's still good, but, it's a lot of the same players that give you everything they have, but hitting it offensively is where, this team just doesn't have that big home run hitter like, you go in the Detroit lineup, you have Miguel Cabrera and Victor Martinez that, pitchers are a little bit scared of. I mean, those guys can flat out hit. And may I remind you, Victor Martinez, who said he'd like to retire an Indian, is a free agent after this year, in which I've mentioned on our podcast many times that would be an absolute great pickup, and that would solidify the Indians team a little bit with that big hitter, because he doesn't seem like he's slowing down. But this Indians team, I mean, they're hardworking guys. They give you everything they have. I think they'd like to see a little more fan support at the games. But in all honesty, these fans aren't going to come until they really see these guys getting on a roll and maybe getting into the playoffs without the one game. I think people will start going once the playoffs start, and they'll go in the summer on a nice day. But I just don't know if they completely have faith still. I mean, the Dolans have spent money. There's no doubt about that. But I still don't know if they believe with this team, because it's kind of a roller coaster ride here and there. But these guys do give you everything. They're going to fight to the last out, and I think it's going to be enjoyable to watch. I know it's been tough, the first half of the season. They've been inconsistent, but they're starting to reach a peak here. And remember, Kipnis has been out. Jason Giambi, he had a home run tonight. He's getting back. So they've had some injuries, and obviously we'll get into pitching, but the pitching has been absolutely, tough right now, to say the least, when it comes to this Indians team.
Yeah, I think that's where we need to take this now. Let's talk about the pitching. This is the same Indians franchise that traded back-to-back Cy Young winners in CC Sabathia and Cliff Lee. Let's not forget, we did do that. What are we learning about our roster as it kind of moves forward? I mean, we've seen some struggles from Salazar. We've seen a lot, and it has not all been positive for the Tribe by any stretch. So, how is this shaking out? Like, what are we starting to discover with what we have and where we're a little weak, and some moves that we're going to have to make here?
Well, I think, starting with starting pitching, Justin Masterson wanted $17 million before the year to be the ace of this team, and right now he's not necessarily looking like the ace, the dominant ace that the Indians want, and they were smart, I think, to hold off. I would have even said probably sign him, because, he's been consistent for a few years. This year he's struggling a little bit. It's still early, so he can turn this around, but he's had some absolute rocky starts, and so has Zach McAllister. He's a guy that, had a few really impressive outings in the beginning of the season, and he's got hit pretty hard his last few. Corey Kluber, though, is a guy, he's a young guy that seems to really, he's finding, I think, the different pitches he can use. He's going deep into games and really getting teams off balance and really doing a nice job. The starting pitching has been okay. It's been inconsistent, but the same with the bullpen. You get John Axford as your closer. He blew 2 saves and has been struggling a little bit. You take him out and put Cody Allen in there, and Cody Allen's struggling, to close games. I mean, Cody Allen has great stuff, but not necessarily, he might not be the answer at closer. I think with Axford, you might have to try him a few more games, and just see what happens, see if he can get his confidence back. The bullpen overall, though, they had a guy, I can't remember his name right now. It's Atchison is his name, and he's a 38-year-old veteran. He was with the Mets. He's been around the league a long time. He's been one of the most pleasant surprises I have seen. I mean, this guy's 38 years old, and he seems to be really with it this year. He has a 1.38, I think, ERA. He just got a save the other day. He got his first win of the year the other day. He's been helping this bullpen significantly. And, there's been some other nice surprise in the bullpen, but overall it's just been a rocky road for, the offense isn't hitting, but the bullpen's doing solid. The bullpen's not doing solid, and the hitting's doing well. So they need to put them both together if they want to start winning some games.
Yeah, I'm looking at Atchison online. Yeah, he looks like a coach. He doesn't really look like a player. He's 38 years old. He's older than we are.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, I actually had to do a little research on him because I had no clue where he came from, but I think he's another guy that, maybe just wanted, spring training tryout, made the team, and, I mean, he's been solid this year. I mean, he's pitched a good amount of innings. He throws a lot of strikes, gets ahead of batters. He doesn't have that 98-mile-per-hour fastball, but in today's game, I mean, a lot of times, just because you have a 98 to 100-mile-per-hour fastball, if you don't have good location on that pitch, these hitters are going to hit it out. You need to have more of a good location pitch. If you throw 88, but you know how to spot your pitches, you're going to be more successful than, say, an Aroldis Chapman that can reach back through 102, put it right down the middle, and get hit. You got to have some kind of other pitch, an off-speed pitch that you can locate. And I think that's what Atchison does is he can locate his pitches. I think he realized he's not going to overpower anybody, and he's done it successfully this year. I mean, hitters are really struggling against him from the right and left side of the plate.
Yeah, and, that's the thing. If you can just make a roster, if you can just make the squad, you never know when your name's going to get called. And that's the point. You always have to be ready. I mean, I don't want to necessarily bounce to the Browns right now with Johnny Manziel being told you're the backup, act like a backup, and it's also a competition at the same time. But I mean, that's how it goes. You just gotta get there in the first place. I mean, this guy Atchison, he's only he's 38 years old, and he's only been in Major League Baseball for 7 years. So he broke in as a 31-year-old. That's against all odds as it is, but that kind of sums up what you have with the Tribe. It's a bit of a scrappy team. It's kind of that Midwestern hard work ethic kind of deal. But talk to me a little bit about Salazar and Carlos Carrasco, because I mean we've been kind of juggling some other people in the lineup as well in our rotation.
Well, yeah, Salazar, he was the guy the Indians looked to really full the starting staff, and I mean he's just, I don't know, he seems like a guy that he has a great fastball, can throw in the high 90s, but he's kind of inaccurate with where he wants to put the ball. He's putting it right over the plate, and they're hitting it. Where in AAA he used to have success just blowing guys away, and he just hasn't found it this year and hasn't figured it out. I mean, and that's the thing with the Indians. There's a lot of young guys on this team, especially pitching. A lot of young guys, and they have to figure out how to get consistent. They're doing something, it's successful, and then the guys start picking it up and start hitting them. What changes do you need to make? And Salazar and Carrasco, for that matter, have been inconsistent. Carrasco shows signs he has great stuff, but when he gets hit hard, it's a free-for-all. They're scoring 7 runs on them. They have to be able to make adjustments during the game, and that's they're young pitchers, and they just haven't figured it out yet. So Salazar, even in AAA, has been struggling. So, those two guys, they're important pieces, of the pitching staff, and they haven't been able to figure it out so far. So now they're sending them down to AAA and bring some other guys up, just like today. They had a guy named T.J. House, I believe his name was, who pitched today. He pitched okay. Didn't pitch bad, but, I think he gave up 5 runs. And then there was another guy, Lowe, that came in after him, another young pitcher they brought up because they need pitching. Their pitching has gone through a lot of late extra inning games.
Oh, yeah, back-to-back, really late games, crazy games the past 2 days.
And that's why, so they're bringing up these young pitchers, and, hopefully, they can keep them at least in games, and the offense has to put up some runs, which the offense scored 4 runs today, but again...
Yeah, but House gave up 5 runs in 6 innings, so...
Yeah, and I mean, at least he gave him 6 innings. I mean, that's like when Scherzer pitched, he gave up 7 runs, but it was more important for the Tigers that he went 7 innings, too.
Right.
Ate up some of the bullpen.
Yeah, that was crazy, really getting to light into Max Scherzer and getting to tear into Oh, wow.
Verlander.
Yeah, I was thinking Masterson. I couldn't. Yeah, Justin Verlander. I mean, that was really good seeing this offense that's been sputtering so much actually kind of tear into 2 Cy Young winners back to back. But yeah, you're right. The consistency isn't there right now.
And like you said with Verlander, I think he had some really good year, and so did Scherzer. Was unbelievable last year. But it's going to be tough to repeat those performances. They're solid pitchers, but I think, I don't know if they've lost a step, but I think the Indians have figured Verlander out for sure. I mean, they hit him really hard, and we'll see what changes they make to the next time they play him. But you look at those 2 guys, I mean, they had sensational years. Verlander had an amazing year, and then the next year he struggled, and then this year I don't think he's as good as he was. And then you look at Scherzer. He won 20-something games last year, maybe lost 1 or 2 games. And this year, I mean, if you expect him to win another 22 games and lose 1, I think you're mistaken. I think he's good. I just don't think he's that good. That's tough to do. I don't care who you are. And, the Indians figured those guys out. And actually, Scherzer, I think, tried to make adjustments during the game because he thought the Indians were figuring out his pitches. And obviously that wasn't it because they continued to hit him all game.
Let me ask you a final question here, and we'll let you get going, Rob. I appreciate your time. I know that your time is quasi-limited today, so I think I'm going to bring in John Tuberin, a buddy of yours. I think we'll talk about T.J. Ward, talk about the NFL lawsuit, maybe a Josh Gordon update, and some of the other stuff going on, maybe with the Cavs. And, of course, he's a Tiger fan, so I get to rub this in. This will be fantastic. But
I can't even believe you're going to have a Tigers fan on your show. I mean, I'm shocked right now by Brian Engelman to allow that.
Listen. let me tell you something about the new American media here. We have a show called Agree to Disagree, where all of your politics, no matter how crazy they may be, you're welcome and you're allowed, and we can talk about it. Usually I just put libertarians on here because I don't feel like arguing, but all opinions are open because I think whether you're a Schittsburg fan or a Cleveland fan, we should be able to agree to disagree. We might have similar politics, but you root for a completely inferior team, and that's just it's a mental defect. It's maybe a birth defect, maybe it's just some sort of genetic malfunction. But I won't hold it against you if you root for the Ravens, but maybe if your politics are spot on, I'll give you a chance.
I'll agree with you. You know what? I appreciate that. And you know what? That is good. John will add great insight. He adds great stuff. Whether he likes Michigan or Detroit, we'll put that aside. And like you said, agree to disagree. And I think he'll be a great add to your show. We'll say that.
Very political. You must be running for local office.
Actually, I am. I'm mayor of. I have no clue where, but I'll figure it out.
Drinksburg, USA. No, but I was going to ask how much of a difference does it make with coaching? Like you were saying that. What were we talking about? We were talking about Salazar. We were talking about some of the guys maybe figuring out, or the pitchers getting figured out. How much of this comes down to Terry Francona and the entire coaching staff, as far as giving the players successful game plans? Because when I played high school football with the Brunswick Blue Devils, my junior and senior year, we were undefeated 2 years in a row in the regular season. Played the state championship against Ignatius my junior year, and then when I was a starting defensive end, we beat Massillon in the first round and eventually lost to Canton McKinley in the second round after an undefeated regular season, and McKinley went on to win the national championship. The next year, they were that good. But I always credit that to really great coaching. That I was a very good player on a great team, but our team was great because our coaches were excellent. And we were so trained and so prepared on how to battle our opponents. They studied endless footage of the teams we were playing. And that scout team offense, when I was playing defense, that scout team offense was running every one of the key plays that the other teams had to show us, whether it was Berea or whether it was North Royalton or Strongsville or whoever it is. We were so prepared that we didn't have to think out there. There was zero paralysis through analysis. It was just react. It was hit. It was go. It was get the ball. It was just succeed. Mm-hmm. How much of that applies in baseball? Because it's almost just kind of pitch and catch, and obviously there's a game plan and a strategy, but how valuable is a manager and a coaching staff, to the pitching staff or the regular players and all of the in and out moves when you got to, swap out players for defensive purposes or, get a speedy base runner on the paths if you're down by one and you got a runner on second. Like, how valuable is a manager in baseball, Rob?
I'd say it's pretty important. I mean, what Terry Francona does is, the bend that don't break attitude. I mean, especially with a lot of these pitchers, I mean, their confidence could be shot. You've got to kind of calm them down and figure out him and Mickey Callaway. He's the pitching coach, especially the pitching coach, because or like a hitting coach. You have to figure out how are we going to get these guys better. And sometimes, technique and, different arm angles, slowing them down on the mound, or, some of them like to go from the stretch instead of going, a different way. So I think you have to look at all the different aspects. And these guys look at video of pretty much every pitch, with these guys and try to figure out how to get these guys to get back in their comfort zone. You don't want to switch everything. I think that's tough, and especially when these guys have been successful, to try to change too much, but you can fine-tune things. And Terry Francona has to keep these guys positive. It's pretty easy to really get into something like Carlos Santana. I mean, he's been trying to keep him in the lineup to get consistent, and he hasn't been doing it. But if you take out a guy like that, would that hurt his mental stability? And he has to figure out, right now he has a hole in his swing, and that's for the hitting coach to take a look and say, all right, shorten your swing up a little bit, and try to figure out, how you can maybe turn on the ball a little more or take it to opposite field, or just to get him back in a comfort zone. So those guys are pretty important to get the players back on track, especially the ones that are struggling. Obviously, like Michael Brantley, he's a more consistent hitter that has almost a picture-perfect swing, and he's in the cages all the time. But you have to go with the guys that are struggling. You have to just get them to relax, clear their head, and try to get them to focus on just making some maybe minor changes in their minds. And that goes for pitching and hitting. And Mickey Callaway does a great job. He has a tough job, though, because a lot of these guys are young. So, depending on if they take what he says and apply it, they have to do that. The coach can try, but, them taking it and doing it are another thing. And it takes some time with these guys, but I think the coaching staff, I mean, those guys are important to a game, and to keep, the mood in the clubhouse going and having fun. And, even though you lose 6 games in a row, you guys were okay. It's early in the season. So I think they're pretty important.
Well, I remember Albert Bell was pretty, not notorious. It's just easy. Every time I think of Albert Bell, I want to say notorious. But it was pretty well documented that Albert Bell was pretty intensely studious with his note cards of every single pitch that he saw from every single pitcher, and in the dugout, just having all of the details that you could. This is probably before the personal assistant, PDA computers, on your wristwatch or on your Google Glass while you're playing at the same time. Before we completely blended with machines, but yeah, I mean, you saw Albert Bell's success, and yeah, a lot of this does come down to studying. Knowing your opponent, knowing their weaknesses, knowing how to attack, knowing where your weaknesses are, knowing how to adapt to that. So, I mean, here we are. It's almost at the, coming up about a week till the end of May. In the Tribe, we're essentially a slightly subpar 500 team. But, seeing the Indians sweep the Tigers, I do feel like we're setting ourselves up in a good position to maybe make a run toward the All-Star break and then really catch fire in the springtime. In about a minute left, what do you expect to see out of the Tribe in the next couple of months here?
Yeah, I think they will get more consistent. I think they did the same thing last year, except they were actually, probably 6 games under 500. They just need to get consistent, get that positive energy going. I think the Indians will be fine. I mean, there's 162 games in the year, a lot of games, but now's the time. I mean, the Tigers lost again yesterday. I don't know what they did tonight, but you're going to have rides like this. It's going to be a little bit of a roller coaster ride. Where you'll lose 4, you'll win 7. You'll lose 4, you'll win 5. Something like that. So if the Indians can get consistent, continually maybe get on some more winning streaks. I think they'll be fine, and it's a long season, so hopefully these young guys will get more energy and figure it out. But a long season ahead. I think it's going to be fun, and look for them to get on a few more winning streaks.
Excellent. Well, yeah, I couldn't agree with you much more than I do, and it's nice having you on board to check out and talk about some of the Tribe action. Real quick, give us where we can stay in touch with you and follow what you're doing with Sports on Tap.
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at rtrouty, and that's Trauty, or at SOT Podcast. We're on Podomatic, iTunes. Check us out. We're a fun podcast, and appreciate you having me on your show.
All right, Rob, thank you again for your time. You have a great weekend and a great Memorial Day, sir. We'll be talking with you again soon.
All right, you as well, Brian.
All right, take care. There goes Rob Trautman, everybody. Make sure you follow him. We'll be back on the other side in just a second with John Toburin. We're going to talk about, a little bit of Tribe, but we're also going to talk about a whole lot more. Some Browns, some Cavs, all that good stuff. My name's Brian Engelman. Thank you very much for listening at thenewamericanmedia.com. We'll be right back with the Unhappy Hour, second segment, in just a second.
It's the Unhappy Hour.